The crystal chandelier at Bistro Lauren cast elegant shadows across our family table, but the atmosphere was anything but refined. I sat quietly in my vintage blazer and paint-stained jeans, watching my family celebrate Mom's 55th birthday while simultaneously dissecting my life choices with surgical precision. I'm Natalie Morrison, though my family had taken to introducing me as our daughter who's still figuring things out. At 31, I was the disappointment, the one who had chosen art over accounting, who lived in a converted warehouse loft instead of a suburban mansion, who drove a paint-splattered van instead of a luxury sedan. I was the black sheep, the eccentric, the embarrassment. My sculptures, works that collectors across continents fought to own, were dismissed at this table as little more than a childish phase one had failed to grow out of. "So, Natalie," my sister-in-law Jessica said, her tone sugar-sweet but laced with venom, "are you still doing that pottery thing?" "Sculpture," I corrected softly, swirling the stem of my untouched wine glass. The Pinot Noir they'd ordered was exquisite, no doubt, but according to the sideways glances I'd received, far too expensive for my supposed budget. Derek, my older brother, the family's golden child, chuckled, leaning back with his trademark smirk. His tailored suit, his Rolex, his booming confidence were all props in his one-man show of success. He had built an accounting firm and never let anyone forget it. "Still playing with crayons?" he asked loudly enough to draw a few glances from nearby tables. "Grow up and get a real job." Mom's hand fluttered over mine in a gesture meant to seem tender, though her eyes betrayed the disappointment that had lingered for years. "Darling, you know we support your hobby, but wouldn't you be happier with some stability? Derek knows several firms that would hire you." "Art isn't a hobby, Mom," I said quietly, though there was an iron edge beneath my calm. "It's my career." Dad snorted, shifting the cuff of his designer jacket so his watch glimmered under the chandelier's light. "Career? Natalie, you're 31. When are you going to stop this fantasy and join the real world?" Jessica, ever eager to play the role of the concerned in-law, nodded sagely. "We're just worried about you living in that warehouse district, driving that old van. It can't be safe or profitable." Derek smirked. "Yeah, Nat, be honest, what did you make last year? 5,000? 10? I smiled faintly and let the silence linger. None of them knew about the collectors in Zurich, the gallery contracts in New York, the six-figure sales that came in so steadily I'd stopped keeping count. I had learned long ago that revealing my successes only led to uncomfortable questions, thinly veiled envy, and eventually requests for family loans that were never repaid. "There's still time to change direction," Mom continued, clearly convinced she was being supportive. "Remember how good you were with numbers in school? Derek says his firm is expanding into the 21st century. Perhaps you could." "Hopefully," I murmured, unable to help myself. Derek's face darkened. "My firm is one of the most successful in the state. We handle accounts worth millions." "I'm sure you do," I replied evenly. Dad leaned forward, his voice heavy with the weight of family legacy. "The Morrison name means something in this city. Your great-grandfather built our reputation on business principles, hard work, practical choices, real value, not—" His gaze flicked dismissively over me. "Finger paintings." Jessica laid her hand over Derek's. "You could still make something of yourself, Natalie. It's not too late to start over." Derek checked his watch, exaggerating the gesture so that its glint caught the chandelier's light. "Speaking of making something, I just closed a deal with Morrison Industries. Biggest client we've ever landed. Maybe you've heard of them, Natalie. They're kind of a big deal." The irony nearly made me laugh. Morrison Industries wasn't just a client. I was already 6 months into a multi-million-dollar commission for their headquarters. Each of the 7 sculptures I was building was worth more than Derek's firm's entire quarterly revenue. "Never heard of them," I lied smoothly. "Well, you wouldn't move in those circles," Derek said smugly. "The CEO is Alexander Morrison, tech billionaire, Forbes list. You know, successful people." I kept my expression neutral. Alexander Morrison and I had been meeting regularly, sometimes in his office, sometimes at my studio, sometimes over quiet dinners where talk of art bled into talk of philosophy, culture, and the strange ways success isolated people. He was more than a client, though I doubted my family would understand. "I'm sure he's very impressed with your services," I said, my tone careful. Mom leaned forward eagerly. Derek, didn't you say Mr. Morrison was single? Maybe he'd be interested in meeting Natalie. A man like that could help her get her life on track. I nearly choked on my water. If only she knew. Mom, Derek said with theatrical patience. A man like Alexander Morrison doesn't date struggling artists. He moves in circles with people who have actual achievements. Real accomplishments. Dad echoed. Not whimsical distractions. Jessica tilted her head thoughtfully. Natalie could take business classes, learn how to present herself better. First impressions matter, especially in the professional world. Before I could reply, the restaurant doors opened with a flourish. A ripple of awareness spread across the dining room. Waiters stiffening to attention. Diners whispering. Alexander Morrison had entered Bistro Lauren like a king returning to his court. His presence commanded the room instantly, the way only extreme power and wealth can. His tailored suit caught the light. His confidence radiated like electricity. And when his gaze swept the dining room, it landed, inevitably, on me. His expression brightened into something startlingly genuine. Natalie. His deep voice carried effortlessly, drawing every eye in the restaurant. My favorite artist. The room fell silent. Forks paused midair. Conversations froze. My family sat stunned as the most powerful man in the city strode toward our table with open familiarity. Alexander reached me in moments, leaning down without hesitation to brush a kiss against my cheek. European style. I was hoping I'd run into you. Are you ready to discuss that $50 million commission we talked about? The clatter of Derek's fork hitting his plate was deafening in the silence. Alexander, I said warmly, standing to greet him. What a lovely surprise. I was just celebrating my mother's birthday with my family. He turned to my stunned relatives with a dazzling smile. Family, how wonderful. I'm Alexander Morrison. Natalie has been working on an extraordinary sculpture series for my headquarters. Revolutionary work. The kind that will define an era. Mom's lips moved soundlessly. Dad had turned a peculiar shade of gray. Jessica's eyes darted between me and Alexander, wide with disbelief. And Derek, my brother who mocked my crayons, looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Mr. Morrison, he blurted, scrambling to his feet, his hand outstretched. Derek Morrison, Morrison Accounting. We spoke yesterday about your quarterly reports. Alexander's eyes flicked to him with polite disinterest. Ah yes, the accountant. Small world. His attention returned to me, his smile softening. Natalie, I've been speaking with the Tokyo Cultural Ministry. They're thrilled about the installation you proposed. I told them your vision would reshape the international conversation around contemporary art. Tokyo, Mom whispered faintly. 50 million, Dad murmured, his voice cracking. The Mori Art Museum is hosting a retrospective of Natalie's work next spring. Alexander continued smoothly. Of course, you must all be very proud. International recognition of this magnitude is rare. The table was silent. Diners at surrounding tables were whispering. Phones discreetly raised to capture the scene. My family, who had spent the evening ridiculing my life, now sat frozen in the knowledge that they had grossly underestimated me. Alexander, enjoying the tension more than he should, signaled for another chair. Perhaps I could join you for a moment? I never pass up the chance to meet the family of someone so talented. As he sat, spreading his napkin with elegance, he turned to Mom. So, tell me, what was it like watching Natalie develop her artistic vision? You must have wonderful stories about her early work. My mother opened her mouth, but no words came out. And in that silence, with the chandelier sparkling overhead and the entire restaurant holding its breath, I realized this was the moment everything shifted. Wonderful stories about her early work, Alexander prompted with a smile. Mom cleared her throat, flustered. Well, she was always very creative. Creative, Alexander echoed, clearly delighted. What an understatement. Did you know her most recent piece sold at Sotheby's for $12 million? The bidding war was spectacular. Jessica made a strangled noise. Derek looked like he might be sick. 12 million? Dad repeated, his voice cracking. For a single sculpture, Alexander confirmed smoothly, though it's hardly unusual for Natalie. The piece I acquired last year has already tripled in value. A brilliant investment, but more importantly, brilliant art. He turned to Derek with polite interest. You're in accounting, aren't you? Then you must appreciate the remarkable returns your sister generates. Truly impressive numbers. Derek's mouth opened, then closed. The brother who had mocked me for years about crayons and finger painting suddenly had no words. I was just telling the family about your Morrison Industries account, I said lightly. Derek was thrilled to land such a prestigious client. Alexander's smile sharpened. Yes, we'll see how that relationship develops. Competence is something I value greatly in business. The warning landed squarely. Derek paled further. Natalie, Alexander continued warmly, I hate to intrude, but I had to share this with you personally. The Venice Biennale accepted your installation proposal. You'll be representing the United States Pavilion. Silence engulfed the table. The Biennale wasn't just an art exhibition, it was the pinnacle of contemporary recognition. Derek looked catatonic. That's incredible news, I said softly. Thank you. Alexander inclined his head. You deserve it. And of course, the Morrison Industries series comes first. Great art can't be rushed. He glanced at my stunned family. Naturally, you'll all be attending Venice. It's an honor for any family to see one of their own achieve such prestige. Mom bobbed her head, though it was clear she had no idea what Venice Biennale even meant. Alexander's phone buzzed. He excused himself with practiced grace. European markets. But Natalie. Dinner Thursday, Le Bernardin. My assistant will confirm. He kissed my cheek again and shook hands around the table, pausing deliberately at Derek. Accuracy matters, especially in financial reports. I trust you understand. Derek croaked out a nod. When Alexander departed, leaving half the restaurant staring after him, silence settled over our table like a shroud. 50 million? Mom finally whispered. For a series of installations, I confirmed evenly. 7 pieces. 3 years. Morrison Industries will have one of the most important corporate art collections in the country. Jessica's eyes were wide. And the Biennale? You're actually representing the U.S. Pavilion, I said. Yes. You're famous, Dad muttered, as if only now believing it. I've been featured in Art News, Art Forum, The Times. My work's in museum collections across 3 continents. Derek finally spoke, voice hoarse. Why didn't you tell us? I met his eyes steadily. Because you wouldn't have believed me. You would have dismissed it, just like you always did. Their shame was written plainly across their faces. The loft you think is unsafe? I continued. I own the building. Worth 8 million. The van you laugh at? Custom built for transporting valuable art. More expensive than Derek's BMW. No one spoke. I don't live that way because I can't afford more. I live that way because it fits my work and my values. Mom reached for my hand. Sweetheart, we had no idea. You never asked, I said quietly. You never showed interest, never came to my shows, never tried to understand my work. Dad cleared his throat. We thought we were being practical. No, I cut in gently. You thought you were being superior. That's not the same thing. The waiter approached with dessert menus, but I waved him off. I should get back to my studio. That commission won't sculpt itself. Natalie, wait, Derek pleaded, catching my sleeve. Can't we start over? I looked down at his hand until he let go. Start over because you respect me as an artist? Or start over because you're worried about losing your biggest client? His silence was all the answer I needed. I placed enough cash on the table to cover the bill and tip. Happy birthday, Mom. Enjoy the rest of your evening. As I walked out, I caught my reflection in the restaurant's window, paint-stained jeans, vintage blazer, and a calm smile. The kind of smile that comes from knowing you've already proven yourself where it really matters. In the van, my phone buzzed with a text from Alexander. Hope I didn't cause family drama. Your brother looked surprised. I replied, only the good kind. Perfect timing. See you Thursday for Tokyo details. His answer came quickly. Generous of you not to let me fire him. Until Thursday. I started the van and drove back to my studio, where 7 unfinished sculptures waited. $50 million of work. Yes, but more importantly, proof that I'd chosen the right path all along. Behind me, through the restaurant windows, I could see my family huddled together, whispering, recalculating, rewriting their version of me. But their revision didn't matter anymore. Because the truth wasn't in their approval, it was in my art.